U.S. government for changing the tax law, so we all get to put an extra check in the mail today. Let's just take a moment. Okay. Well, it's something good has to happen, so we're going to give you a good concert. Now, we have a lot of great music tonight. Now, I must apologize for those who showed up last Thursday night because some of the posters that we printed the first of the year were incorrect. We had changed the date and didn't put it there. So if you were there last Thursday night, thank you for showing up, and thank you for showing up again tonight, not being mad at us. We'll try to make it up to you, so it's good to have you here tonight. And I know we have people online and online watch this live stream across the nation. And so all of you who are watching us on the internet, we're glad to see your faces. All right, so we're glad to have you with us. We're going to have we have several guests tonight in our graduate section of our music school of music. And in fact, all of our conductors tonight are graduate students. I kind of bloopered it a little bit by putting Lindsay's Shoebridge down as an undergrad conductor. I think I have this inner thing here to try and keep her here as long as possible, not let her graduate. But she's also a graduate student in music education. So all three of our graduate conductors tonight are going to present some of the pieces. Our Sarah and Heather, you will hear, are both kind of completing their masters in wind conducting. Our first graduate, Sarah, will graduate this in just a few weeks. And Heather will graduate this summer, so we're pretty proud of these two gals who are kind of taking off on a new direction for us. So we're going to continue I don't know, that last piece always leaves me breathless. What a wonderful, wonderful piece. And what do you follow something like that with? A fast Russian march. That's all there is. So interesting notes about the Prokofiev March. It's always been one of my favorites for a long, long time. And Prokofiev came to the United States for a while in the 1920s to escape the Stalinist regime and everything. And in fact, Hollywood offered him $2,500 a week to write movie scores. Now that was big money, and he would have been, it was like living like a millionaire. But he declined to Hollywood with all that glamour, and at the last minute he decided he would return to Russia. Of course, the first thing he did when he returned to Russia was to write a movie score called Alexander Nevsky, this huge movie. It's like 6 hours long, about this Teutonic Knights and the big battle on the ice and all. And so it was a grand score with chorus and all kind of thing. But he met Richard Frankel Goldman, the leader of the Goldman Band in New York, of one of the most famous American professional bands. And Goldman had one day said, well, if you want to write something for us, just drop it in the mail, so to speak, kind of thing. And so, as the legend goes, like 2 or 3 or 4 years later, this little brown package comes to the Goldman Band, wrapped with all these Russian stamps, and inside it was the March of the Spadikiyad, and it was all written in all kinds of Russian instruments. And so Richard Frankel Goldman then Americanized it, and it's been around since then. It's one of that and the Opus 99 are probably two of the more famous Prokofiev marches, and they're always so much fun. I've always loved Prokofiev because his music always sounds happy, so it's just, I like happy guys. And so it was like, it's really neat, fun piece to play. We're going to use you're going to center on one of our other graduate conductors, Lindsay Shoebridge is coming, and the piece she's going to do, the Cotta and Chorale, or the Chorale and Toccata, Jack Stamp. Jack Stamp's a good friend of mine. He's the band director at Indiana University of Indiana, Pennsylvania, which is kind of I know it's always confusing when you say that kind of thing, but he's a great conducting teacher. In fact, my wife studied with him and Gene Corporon down in North Texas, and so besides being a great conductor, he also is a great composer, and he writes a number of really nice pieces. This is an older piece that I discovered kind of 6 or 7 years ago, and did it once. And so I'm asking Lindsay, said, well, what kind of piece would you like to write? So she goes through all the old recordings, and she comes back in with this piece. And I didn't tell her that it's really hard. So Lindsay's discovered what kind of conductor you have to be when you stand on the podium, when you take the stick in your hand, boy, I tell you. And I want you to know, our conductors work up these pieces. This is not like Dave doing the pieces and handing them over to somebody else to copy. So, it's the real business. And so this is a wonderful, wonderful piece, and Lindsay's done a great job at it. So would you please welcome Lindsay Shoebridge to our conductor's desk, the Jack Stamp Chorale and Toccata. That's not the first time I've had a piano mishap. When I first got here about 15 years ago, I accompanied several times on senior recitals, and I had this one young lady, a flute player at the time, and I was accompanying her, and on her program she had several pieces of Poulenc, the Poulenc flute, the Hindemith, stuff, it was, all that hard stuff, kind of thing, and so every time she'd come backstage, I'd walk out with her and get at the piano. Well, I forgot that she was going to do an unaccompanied piece. So she walks down stage, I follow her out there, I sit down at the piano, and she looks over at me, and she walks over, and she leans over to me, and this is what I heard her say. And I went, we went on for several times. I couldn't, it was just a moment. And finally, my page turner went, "We're not playing this piece." And so I just sat there for moral support, kind of thing. So I tend to do that. I'm sorry, but Lindsay, that was marvelous, Lindsay. Good job, and way to look at me and go, so it's, because as we know in here, the person who has the stick has all the authority. So and these young conductors take charge of that. We're gonna do a piece now that I think is a fun piece, miniature set for band. I played this when I was in college, and I hated it. And now I love it. I realize it's just the most fun little piece of little snippets of piece. And once you realize what's happening, all the rhythm and then the dialogue, the second movement and the fourth movement, these little dialogues, they're all very, very short. And unlike it says in the program, it actually was voted by the college band directors in 1958 as the most monumental piece of the year. So it had some merit to it. By the time I got around to it, I don't know why maybe I had an uninteresting part to play. I'm not really sure. I wasn't a saxophone player. This is a very funny piece. I noticed in the program it says something about that Mr. White doesn't always use the full band sound. In fact, there's only 16 measures in this whole piece where he uses the full band at one time. And the funny thing about the piece is that he hardly uses saxophones at all. The saxophone's set for 25 measures, and suddenly go honk, and that's it for 25 measures, And so but again, it has turned out, in my mind, to be one of the most fun pieces we played, just because of the way it's been put together in all these small snippets, because you can actually recognize things that are happening. So the miniature set for band, 1958. I think you'll like this, and if you don't, I do. So I know. Right. every year at this time and at the last semester, or the last concert of the first semester, we always have to say goodbye to those who are either student teaching or are graduating. And it's been quite a year. I noticed that Dr. Green in the concert chorale, I felt like he gave out roses for a half hour. It seemed like he lost half his choir. And this year in the Wind Ensemble, I've had some wonderful young people who've been with me a long time, and it's finally, sooner or later, you hit those years where my first semester, if you were here, you remember, we gave away 7 roses. I had 7 of my players who went to start student teaching, and tonight is really no exception. Tonight we say goodbye to 9 of our fellow musicians here. Some of them are going to internships, some of them are going to student teaching, and several of them are graduating. They're the ones with the big smiles on their faces, and so the end is near for those. So we'd like to introduce them to you. I'm going to ask them to come down here in the front on this platform, and I told them that they could come down here, but not to push me off here. But I want to introduce them to you so you can see them, and you can give them a hand. We have, first of all, I'm going to start over on this side with Jordan Mulkey. Jordan, why don't you come down? Jordan is a baritone player. He's heading for an internship and student teaching next year. And thank you, sir, for your well-deserved rose. Now, we have another member of the Mulkey family who is not going to be student teaching, not going to be internship, not going to be graduating, but she's about to take on the hardest job in the world, and that is mom. And I want to honor faithfulness, and I'd like you to introduce Mrs. Mulkey. Abby, please come down and take a rose from us, please. My wife's right-hand person this year has been Hannah Christian, and Hannah has just I tell you, those who have seen we'll talk about my wife in a minute because she's gone through a little bit of turmoil in the last few days with a detached retina, and so she's worried about work getting done. And the first message she got in the text the other day was from Hannah saying, "Don't worry, I'm taking care of everything." And Hannah has been a marvelous addition to our ensemble, not as a musician, but as the helping hand and kind of the person that, you always have that person in the background that takes care of all the stuff that nobody else wants to take care of. And Hannah, please come and accept a rose from us for your faithfulness to our ensemble. Young man in the trombone section, Nate Hopple, is here to, he's going to student teach. Do you know where you're student teaching yet? Not yet, okay, but this next fall he will be student teaching, and he has been with us for, seems like a long time. I don't know when Nate hasn't been in our group. Nate, thank you very much for your work with us here, and congratulations on a well-served career. So, young man, your rose. Thank you. And back in our trumpet section, Brianna Maya has come. She came through us from Kalamazoo, Michigan. And the reason I know that is because I did a gig in Kalamazoo like 2 weeks before Brianna comes to our school, and she's transferring in as a trumpet player, and she's been a marvelous addition. She's one of those rocks back there in the trumpet section. I always can count on her, and so she is going to be student teaching or interning. And because what is your major? It's church music. Okay, and so and you're going overseas, aren't you? You thinking about it? No, Michigan. Michigan. Well, that's almost overseas. I'd rather spend a winter here than in Michigan, kind of thing. But Brianna, thank you so much for your faithfulness to our group. And we have 4 seniors who are leaving us, and Danielle Sharp back in our trumpet section also. Danielle, this is the first semester she's been able to be in when her schedule has been so erratic to try and get her in the wind ensemble. Nothing really seemed to work, and this finally, her final semester, she finally becomes a team member with us, and we're so happy because she's a marvelous trumpet player. Danielle, thank you. I'm so glad you were here for even a little while. It was a marvelous addition. Thank you so much. Well, the rock star of our horn section, Erica Tipton has been with us for, I don't know, Erica, did you start playing with us when you were still in high school? Okay, I couldn't remember. We had several of our students I know. Every once in a while I will take a senior in high school from one of the local schools to play, and I couldn't remember if Erica had, but Erica is just, she is the rock, of our horn section. And the good news is she's coming back as a grad student next year. I'm so happy to hear that. Erica, thank you so much for your faithfulness to our group and your leadership. Give a hand to Erica. And we have two graduates. I mentioned earlier we have two graduate students, the first two graduates in our master's program of wind conducting, and we're so happy that they have successfully completed their journey through here. And the first is Sarah Pearson. And Sarah, if you've been around, Sarah's also been the assistant to Maestro Robert Bernhardt in the orchestra. So she has really kind of double dutied as wind conductor and orchestra conductor this year. And in the last year, she's also been the conductor of the Les Mis in Chattanooga, and she just finished Titanic. I'll get that word out. And so she's already found work. Let's put it that way. Sarah, thank you so much for coming here. And then last but not least, Heather Hall, who is my graduate assistant and the head of the percussion section, and have Heather here for a number of years as undergrad and came back as a graduate conductor, and just a marvelous addition. And my right hand this year has been out. And so Heather will be graduating in August. Okay, I thought it was in the summer. I'm going to lose her in the summer. But I'll survive. It's one of those things. Heather, thank you so much for being with us and your patience. Well, if you would, please, as a whole, applaud all these young people who have been wonderful additions to our group. Thank you all so much. Finally got smart by writing all their names down. A couple of years ago, I don't know if you saw it, it got posted on Facebook, but I had their names written on the back of my hand, and of course they stayed with me because I forgot I'd used permanent ink. So those kids stayed with me for about 3 months, but so I was like, well, we're going to continue with a piece that means probably the most to me than any piece ever written for band. When I was a senior or junior actually in college, a man named Václav Nelibel came to our school, and he conducted two of his works, the chorale that you're going to hear, and a piece called Tritico. We've done both those pieces here. But as a young man, it was interesting that I went to school to be a music teacher because everybody in my family and around the town said, well, Dave, you'll make a great music teacher. But I got to school and realized that most of the kids in my class wanted to be a music teacher a whole lot more than I wanted to be a music teacher. They had that passion already that I didn't have, and I didn't know what it was until Václav Nelibel showed up on my campus. And with the first slash of his baton, I realized what that empty space was here as a musician. That some people want to grow up and be a fireman or a policeman. I wanted to grow up and be Václav Nelibel, is basically what it amounted to. But that impetus about just being a composer and seeing the raw energy of his music did something for me. So we've done Tritico, but we've never performed the chorale here in 15 years. I've never got around to doing this piece, and really it's the first piece I did under this master's baton. So we're going to continue with that. I'm going to let Maria, let's tune a moment, and we'll continue with the Nelibel chorale. The Nellie Bell style is different than most people, other people's styles. It's a very flared crescendo. We talk about the Nellie Bell crescendo all the time in our band because it's a crescendo that, it doesn't round off. It's always flared out. And the problem with the music of Nellie Bell today, he was published by a very bad publisher who didn't mark his music very well. And so we find that young conductors around who just see the music as it's black and white on the page, all those flares and things like that angst and anger that shows up in all of his pieces is kind of missing because it's not shown on the page. And it's like it's kind of like all the old timers have to pass it along. So I basically we talk a lot about the Nellie Bell flair because it's something that was really picked up by a number of composers along the way, including yours truly, kind of thing, just because of just where I was raised, kind of thing. So it's that was a rather brutal chorale, and it wasn't like Bach. I understand that, but the da 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 da, that particular melody he used that in about 6 different pieces. And I know I wrote a piece called "Homage: 3 Tapestries," in which one of the movements I used that to kind of pay homage to his influence on me as a young man. Mrs. Holsinger was supposed to conduct the very next piece you have on your program. Unfortunately, last Thursday she had a detached retina, and on Friday morning went in for surgery. And now has to, quite aggravatingly, has to lay on this sofa all the time and keep her head down. And I would describe the operation to you, but you don't really hear about it. It sounds awful, kind of thing. But the problem is, it's a long kind of a recovery area. And so she is not with us tonight. Well, I think she's watching on the internet, kind of thing. And I will hear how I did when I get home. And, it's one of those things, And my biggest fan and my biggest critic 2 times. But that's the way we work, for 45 years. So it's one of those things. So I've actually had to, in the last day, learn the piece she was going to conduct because I did a very bad thing. I didn't really listen to what she was doing. I let her work the piece, and I kind of, went around, and all of a sudden she's not here. So even today, I'm asking, okay, play this through. Okay, how? Okay, because I want to make sure it's done the way it was supposed to be done. So this is me as a proxy to Mrs. Holsinger and the Willows in the Winter. Please welcome Sarah Pearson to the conductor's desk as she presents us with Sir Arthur Sullivan's Pineapple Paul. We thank you so much for being here tonight. We're going to close with an interesting piece that there's quite a bit of information in your program notes, but I need to tell you a little bit about the percussion in this piece. I wanted to write a piece with mechanical sounds, and so I have things like, Heather, spin the chain back there a minute on that. And then we've got pipes over here. Hit some of those. What happened was I went down to Lowe's one day, and I'm sitting in an aisle, and I have all these chains and pipes and stuff all around me on the floor. And of course, what happens? I mean, I'm kind of back hidden away, but suddenly at the end of the aisle, there's Blue Apron Bud shows up. And he walks in, this big guy. He looks at me and he says, "So, what you doing?" I said, I had to explain, well, I'm a composer and I'm writing this piece with all these mechanical sounds. And I'm sitting here kind of doing chains and hitting pipes together, just trying to find some mechanical sounds. Why don't you try this pipe? And so Bud starts pulling out pipes, and we sat there for a half hour banging things together, and I realized after the piece was published that I should have had music by David Holsinger, percussion by Dave and Bud. But it was too late then, I think. But an interesting piece written in 2005, and to tell you the truth, it was just performed about 3 months ago for the first time since 2005. And right now it's scheduled to be played in Japan about 5 times in this fall, and then several other places. It's just, it's one of those pieces that you write and gets hidden away, and you're not quite sure what's going to happen with it. But, when it finally comes around, it's like, I could have written this yesterday, but it's turned out to be quite a fun piece for us. We're going to tune a minute, and we'll do Gears, Pulleys, Chains. And we thank you so much for being here tonight. I know it's been a little longer concert than usual, but we had to get our graduate conductors in. We originally kind of planned on having 2 concerts, but it just seemed it's been a funny semester. Of course, as you who were here at our earlier concert where we realized we had 9 hours to put a concert together because of all the snow and bad weather and stuff. So I appreciate your faithfulness to us, kind of thing. This is your Lee University Flames Wind Ensemble, so we're as good as those sports guys any day. Yeah, that's right. Oh gosh, I hope there's not a coach here. I'd be in trouble. Maria, why don't we tune up? And thank you so much for being here tonight. And Gears, Pulleys, Chains. As always, really can't leave you without more Sousa.